Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 39th episode of Book of Hours, our first YouTube run through it. And I'm not going to lie, I really love this game. So thank you all for sticking with me for so long. We still have a lot of game ahead of us, and as I've been playing on some of the other sessions that I have, this game goes to some really interesting places. So I do apologize that I haven't been talking a little bit more about some of the real-world topics that this game may relate to, but there will be some more of that to carry on later. It just happens to be that right now a lot of my focus has been on trying to make the most of the situation that I find myself in right now. So, we are currently buying a new book from Oriflammes. One of the reasons for that is we're finding ourselves in a situation where we have a lot of books that we can read, particularly because of our access to languages, but we don't have the skill in order to be able to read them. So essentially what I'm doing here is I am buying up books, and then I will be opening up rooms which will get me access to more texts. I shouldn't expect anything out of some of the lower level. So essentially one of the things you can think about here is how likely are you to find books in caves? How likely are you to find books in churches, right? A little bit more likely to find a book in a church than in a cave. So you can use some intuitions in terms of how these things work in terms of opening up rooms. There's still reasons to open up rooms, just, you know, if you're thinking about the problems, like usually you want to think about the problem that you're trying to work with on any given day. And in this case here, the main problem that I'm dealing with is the fact that I have a lot of untapped potential just by virtue of the fact that I'm a bit short in terms of things like Forge or, you know, some of the winter texts we might be able to handle if we can just level things up a little bit more. And this is why I wind up buying things like Keonat Abydos, even though they, you know, the book does actually represent a fairly large fraction of my current wealth, at least as far as the occult coin is concerned. Okay, so let's get this. So this was I believe the last book that we needed to catalog from the solar period, at least out of what we've got here. And this is the Wind's Ruin. This is actually a fairly good one for us because it is a fairly inexpensive Grail text. In fact, I wouldn't even need an Arab on this, although I would need to make sure that I can read it at a relevant desk. Well, actually, I suppose I could use my consider verb for that as well. So good news overall. Let's put this here for now just because I don't have space for it anywhere else. But I'm very happy for that. Normally the solar stuff, and particularly the dawn stuff, winds up being quite challenging, but it isn't always, so it's definitely worth you know, holding out for a bit of good luck. Okay, Witching to Sane, it's best when it's warm, but it'll keep. And here we go, our revelation. So this gives us our next lantern text, which we'll read right away. This is A Light in the Inkwell. Musgrave, 4th of the DeWolf line, writes, tentatively about the Covenant of Brankrug and the legacy of the sacred inks he calls Incasta Revelatonia. So this should be a fairly straightforward matter of glaziering and lightsmithing. And Faust? No, I do still need to... Oh yeah, right, I need to add the memory, but I don't need to worry about the mirror scope. Alright, I can master this mystery. Now this is also going to be important because this will likely give me some details in terms of ink recipes. I've kind of been just relying on the game's prompts for those. However, I do also think that we're going to wind up with a new skill as opposed to something that I can level up with. Okay, so let's think about how I'm going to read this Wind's Ruin text. So I'm going to more or less ignore whatever memories come out of that. Maybe Ambrose's desk? No, because Ambrose doesn't have the moon that I need. And Natan's isn't quite... Well, hang on. Natan's desk works with resurgences and emergences, but I don't think metal or shaft will help me in this case. But what will help... I could actually use Ava's desk. But Abbess Nona's desk should also be available to me. No, actually, because again, the edge, knock, all of those things are not available. Might have worked myself into a corner here then. So it seems to me like I'm probably just gonna have to be patient. I hate being patient. All right. Well, that's fine. We'll use the metal with the Grail desk to read the relevant text, and we will open up the lost packages with Shapt. Crack open the container, delight in your discovery. Now, if I expect to sort of to level up a given skill, I've pretty much eliminated that as a possibility for now. If any, I'm going to have to go back to the Sweet Bones to renew an element of the soul at this point. But I figure we're not too deep into the season. There's not a whole lot in terms of arguments for saying that it's essential that I get these memories dealt with as soon as I get them. So I think we have used up all of the space in Christopher's Nook, so I suspect we're going to be going upstairs for most of this stuff now. Trying to think if there's a better place for the year tally, but at the moment there isn't, so I'm just gonna accept that. Cat's Claw and Moth Orchid. It's also kind of nice to have a little space left in the inventory now, just so I can gather it all and then put it in place. Okay, so we'll wait on Ava's desk. Now, as always, I want to keep an eye on other possibilities. So it may be that I've got a couple of other texts just kind of hanging around that I might be able to make something of. But in this case here, I have a lot on my plate already, so I'm not too fussed about I'm not too fussed about not scouring all of my text to see if there's anything new that I can do. However, we have just finished the Tripled Heart. So again, sacred poems composed in honor of the hours venerated by the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot. The one thing we know that it isn't is satisfaction, because it hasn't disappeared. The Grail is celebrated for her colors, the Malachite for her sweetness, the Axe for her constancy. The Thunderskin, least of the hours of the Knot, when he is even counted among their number at all, is celebrated with an unexpectedly pointed elegy. What lives departs, what is dead remains. Okay. So we got an intuition out of that. This is one that I always struggle to remember. So I think it's the lower... so I think this is Confounding Parable because 108 is my anchor for that. And then intuition is down below. Move Book of the Centipede as the anchor there. Tridisma Hyra. This has actually wound up being a rather interesting one in my other playthrough. And I will confess, I was unaware of the Thunderskin's position in this little pantheon. I don't know if pantheon is the right term, but I'll stick with it for now. Okay, so Desires and Dissolutions with The Wind's Ruin. Second volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. I can master this mystery, enough Grail to match Mystery Grail. And we are getting... Right, we're continuing to read this text. Okay, again, a good day's work. Pink paint. People are never this color. I really do love the descriptions of paint. Like, it's the same joke, but man, it's a good joke. So I feel like I've read this before, but just in case people don't recall. So, yellow. This paint is nothing like the sun. Pink. People are never this color. Bosque green. The wood is probably not this color. Green. Trees are rarely this color. Dusk blue. This paint is the precise color of the Atlantic Ocean at 4 o'clock on a clear autumn afternoon. Palest blue. Snow is not quite this color. I have a feeling that this reflects a much greater understanding of painting than I have. Like I don't even think what I could say. I don't think anything that I've done with painting would even count as dabbling. But I do certainly appreciate the skill required to render the images that we all, sort of admire and consider beautiful. I'm quite lucky in that I live in a city which has some good museums and galleries, but I've almost always lived in a city which could be described like that. If anything, I've sort of undervalued that fact, and I don't travel as often as I should, although I do have memberships. But being able to see a bit of I don't know, I kind of feel like being able to see a great variety of that sort of thing, even if you, like, I know very, very little about art. Although, for those of you who are fond of reading, I did quite like the Ernst Gombrich book, The Story of Art, and I feel that gave me a better appreciation for types of art that normally I wouldn't have quite rated. So that's one that really helped me out. But yeah, for the most part, I can't say that I have much of an appreciation, other than the fact that being able to be exposed at a few different ones and actually being able to see the physical objects as opposed to reproductions of them sort of allows me to see little... There's just... it's funny, there was an exhibit in Vancouver of some, not like the famous Picassos, but like some paintings by Picasso as part of a very focused presentation, and it was one of the first times when I became really aware of the presence of like paint on a canvas, like the particular texture, and the fact that you could actually physically see either brush strokes or maybe even like a little bit more applied to some place than another, I like, again, just some of those little details that you never really think... Okay, here's the better way I could put it. Like sometimes you'll read descriptions in books, and you can almost like tell that somebody has seen something like that in their real life. There are just little details that defy any other explanation. I kind of feel like seeing specific strokes, or again, just little I don't know, adjustments of the topography? Like, basically the fact you're seeing a three-dimensional thing, right? Like the fact that even if it's only a minor amount, that you can actually see there's different quantities in different areas, is one of those things that obviously has to be true because it is a physical object in the real world. And yet, to me, it's one of those things I never really thought about until I actually saw something like that. So that's one of the things that made me... Well, there's two things. So number one, it made me appreciate museums and galleries. And so if there's something on, I try and get out and see it. But of course, number two is also made me appreciate how lucky I am that I get to do these things. Because there was a while when I lived in a very, very small town. And I know not to take that stuff for granted. All right, Trides Mahaira, the rites of the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot, which include certain mysteries of the dwellers in the wood behind the world. It's taken a chance to get reacquainted. Oriflams, thanks you for your custom. So this is a pretty obvious one in terms of tomorrow's tasks. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that I could stack books like this. So this has to be intuition. Right. Okay, A Light in the Inkwell. Musgrave fourth. The other thing, we did put Musgrave in the fourth slot. Musgrave, fourth of the DeWolf line, writes tentatively about the Covenant Brandkrug and the legacy of the sacred inks he calls Incausta Revelatonia. Words are of the first importance, so the Book of Suns teaches, but do not words require ink, and is the inkwell not the womb of words? Musgrave identifies the Ichor Auroral as the mother of the Encastum porphyrine. Okay, I don't normally like to write down things like this, but this is a pretty big one, and I actually think it's going to be something I'm going to want to remember for a future playthrough. He adds that it would be blasphemous to describe the origins of the Ichor itself, although a scrawled marginal note suggests that a later reader thought that Musgrave was only hiding his ignorance beneath a cloak of piety. And that got me 2 Inks of Revelation. And perhaps unsurprisingly, Revelation. So yeah, turned out more or less like expected. Now, trying to make porphyrine is going to be a unique challenge. But yeah, I think the easy answer here, we'll take Inks of Revelation. We'll consider it. Now, I guess the question is, do I see any value in paying to refresh an element of the soul? I kind of do, because we have, with the clouds, we really have what we need. So I think let's pay up. Let's restore that Faust. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie, with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. I'm not going to go for Keon at Abydos. It is rather late in the day for that, but being able to level up a skill, I think that's perfectly reasonable here. And this is going to turn into a level 2, so we'll move Anbury and Lapdary down, and we'll put Inks of Revelation in the appropriate slot when the time comes. So we should have one more text before the end of the day. But yeah, overall, I'd say that's a good day's work. I think we're at the point now, though, where I'm going to have to start... so one, I'm going to have to wait for weather in some cases. And in others, I think we're going to have to get lucky as far as the memories are concerned, which again is fine, because at this point we're going to be using our elements of the soul to create various inks, but it's always good to sort of mark these transitions. Inks of Revelation, the inks in which the histories are revealed. Right, we don't have the Faust yet. One way I can avoid these expenses in terms of going to the sweet bones is using my elements of the soul closer to the end of the day, but I don't like that kind of procrastination, and to be honest, it's not that big of a hit on the finances to spend a tuppence to restore an element of the soul. The big one that the one that I find a little more stressful, I guess for lack of a better term, is the idea of the idea of spending that and not seeing some kind of a return for it, but being able to level up an element of the soul, particularly because it saves me using elements of the soul for memories later on in the day. I actually think that's a very good use of that money. So, okay, Abbot Thomas speaks of his time as a raider, when his name was not Thomas but Toke, scything the sea, striving for plunder. Abbot Thomas clearly regrets his storm years, and much of the book is taken up with his thoughts on penitence, but there are hints also that he misses those years, and the companionship of his sword brother, ship brother, Trigreave. So that's an interesting bit of history. And a beguiling melody. Now this actually makes for an interesting challenge, because we've got the Perugian Diaries, which doesn't have, it's a different kind of melody. I think right now I'm going to make the distinction by holding it on the other side of the pigeon. But yeah, I'm going to need to work that out. Okay, so we've got Applebright Euphonies. Now we already have that here, so I'm going to need to spend something to level it up. We can at least get it in position for its future form. Now we're going to need a Grail or a Sky for that. So in this case, just preserving the... well, honestly, the Grail or the Sky is sufficient. But it seems to me that the Satisfaction is a little easier for us to hang on to. So this is definitely a case where I don't want to spend money to restore... Well, I mean, I can. It's a little late in the day to do this, but you know what? I think I am. So better now. 2 slices of Stargazy pie today. There's always more to learn. So this isn't so much about what I get from Applebright Euphonies, although I'm very happy that I've got the Beguiling Melody. That's going to be relevant when I try to level up some of the higher, or some of the, like, yeah, the higher level skills, some of the more difficult challenges. But this is, again, the idea of spending money to save me the effort of getting, or like restoring certain memories. Although in truth, probably I could have just taken the satisfaction through the next day. Like it's a tough one to defend compared to the Inks of Revelation, but again, it's not going to break the bank, so I'm okay with it. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon, so we should still have a few seconds after the upgrade. Okay, we want to follow up on that as soon as we can. So, Applebright Euphonies, Arab, and Beguiling Melody. This is just because I can't keep the Beguiling Melody into the next day. I have been debating on decamping from this bed. I kind of like the idea of resting in the librarian's quarters, but I also haven't quite had a reason to move over. Obviously, I've been using my heart for other tasks throughout the day. All right. It gives us a little more sky, but I think Drums and Dances is not sky. I need to remember that. But Sacra Lamea also. Oh, interesting. Maybe we have gotten ourselves... No, Glazery and Lightsmithing still gives us the sky we need. As always, it doesn't hurt to take a... I mean, essentially this is almost like window shopping in terms of some of the books. Just seeing if there's a little something extra I can pull out of the day's tasks. But yeah, I think probably our next goal is going to be inks. Okay, a gale. Now that actually changes the plans a little bit. So let's start by seeing what we can do with Instruments of the Heart. And I'm not even going to try and just reason through it in my head. Let's just see what happens when I stick everything in. So we've got a memory. We've got a core. I think my best is Drums and Dances, unfortunately. So yeah, we're already coming up short. But let's just double check that. Well, surgeries and exsanguinations, but it's the same story. Okay, so I'm not ready to give up on this though, because we already have a memory that we can apply. The satisfaction. I could also get a memory of a storm, which I think I prefer. So let's do my usual habit here. Let's see what I can get out of the garden. I'm really good at getting that blue crown. Okay, now this core is spoken for. I do have the option of talking with Mrs. Kill. She's not bad as a memory generator, but I suppose the question would be, well, what purpose do these memories serve? Because I'm actually quite short on books to read right now. So let's instead say that we will use one Arab to gain a storm memory. So that should come from What Does Not Bark. So we're going to use that to take a crack at Instruments of the Heart. We don't have expectations of success, but we don't need it to succeed. We're taking a shot. If it was a storm, we'd be good, but You know, I work with what I've been given. I guess the other alternative I have here is to ask, well, what's possible with Sky? But it would seem to me if we can't do Instruments of the Heart, Demotu Corporum Vitatorum is also 10, but we also have 3 to augment it. But yeah, again, we're still short. So yeah, we'll hold off on that. But I don't think I need to go any further for Keonit Abydos. Or do I? Inks of Containment gets me 3. We're up to 5, but then I don't have a... Yeah, I don't have a Winter Tool, so I do actually need to read a text. Well, that's fine, because that's what FET is for in this case. So we'll use our FET with our other regret. Well, I could do... Oh, God. I think this is the regrets. Maybe it would be good for me to verify this. So I know in a pinch I can use the hindsight, but it's actually probably a good idea for me to see what the Fallen Cross does. Okay, that's a nice start. So we're going to save the Whist. So I've got a Core, Arab no, sorry, Core is also spoken for. So I've got a Shopped, Arab, Metal, Fost, and Trist to play around with. And one of the things that I want to be playing around with now is the construction of inks. So weirdly enough, I don't think Inks of Containment is really going to help me here. I say this because if I go to Whist, so I've already got an Eigengrau. In fact, the better thing for me to do would be, because I kind of already know a little bit about how this works. So if we take Inks of Containment, a Whist, and then if we add a... I'm probably going to have to wait for the memory now that I think of it, but if we add our flower... Yeah, because we tried this before. Unless I can put a salute... Oh, hang on. Yeah, I should be able to... Solomon's Preparation. So that's not really an ink for us to work with. The other option here would be Moon, so we would have a Trist to work with here, right, but they won't want... okay, so we'd have to go to the... Not quite what I wanted. They really don't want me putting that back on the desk, do they? On the shelf with you then. Okay. And turns out this isn't going to do what I wanted anyway. Alright, so maybe the kitchen range. No, doesn't want Moon, right? That's down below. Okay, so I think I'm going to have to try and make the ink at the desk if I'm going to make it anywhere. The reading room should help here. So, no, that's the Ambrose desk. Okay, so we do Trist, Inks of Containment, and how on earth do I make this work for me? Because even if I add the globe, it doesn't really accomplish anything. Well, I guess I could add the Catwink. There we go. Okay, actually that was kind of fun. So let's see what we can do with land. So I guess Catwink is my option for brewing here. So let's see if we can do the same exercise with Inks of Revelation. So we add the Fost. Well, here we go. We've already got Refulg... Wait, Refulgin isn't a... Yeah, Refulgin doesn't count. Because it's not an ink, it's a pigment. But we could add Sea Glass. And then I would need to find a magical 4 lantern just out of nowhere. Weirdly enough, I think I can't... Oh, curse you. It's close. Oh, here we go. Ichor Auroral. There we go. Ichor Vitreous. Okay, so as exciting as that is, these are not what I need right now. I thought we had a Refulgin kicking around here, actually. But yeah, being able to make the Catwink is sufficient. In fact, I will probably use an element of the soul to get the relevant memory. In fact, why not do that right now? So we can read Book of the Centipede. I'll use an arrow. I would have wanted to use an Arab in that case. I want to use the Arab here just because I kind of already have an idea about what I'm trying to... what I'm using in terms of my elements of the soul. Okay, so Wistcore and Trist are spoken for. We are getting a Storm for the core. We are getting a... Yeah, that's for the Wist. So Shapt Metal and Faust are the free elements here. Now again, I can use them for crafting, I suppose. The question would be, what exactly am I trying to craft? Why do I want to do this? What do I think would be useful out of this? Harder to answer, to be honest. So I think we're going to keep them in reserve, and we're going to use them to catalog books when the time comes. In fact, there's nothing saying I can't use the Catwink right now. Ew. Siri's getting eager to help. Yeah, so we'll just grab a Catwink off the corner of the desk, and we'll apply it here. The rattling bridge. Each time the wind makes its rounds, the whole bridge shakes. On its threshold, there is a serpentine knot marked in browned blood. The mark is fading, but it still trembles with the power of the spirit that waits in it, a great servant of the old house, perhaps the last of the fine-takers themselves. I must pacify it with a suitable offering before I can pass. And with that, we will end today's episode. So we'll see what's on the other end of that on what I think is Friday's, should be Friday's episode. But as always, thank you very much for watching. I'm eager to see the other side. It's going to be a while before we get to Nocturnal, but Nocturnal definitely takes a very interesting turn. And I think it's also fair to say that, you know, I've been holding back on some of the things that I can do with elements of the soul and hirelings. It's mostly just here because these are people that I would be paying for, so I don't have the same urgency. But we are going to be seeing a little bit more of the house and also learning a bit more about the residents. But as always, we'll be doing that in another episode. Thanks for watching. Take care.